Make sure you've completed the retrieval practice on Microsoft Forms before watching the rest of this video. The link to this is found under the retrieval practice section of this assignment on Microsoft Teams. As you watch through this video, make notes of any new information. This can be in the form of bullet points or a mind map. This lesson looks at Russian settlements. The learning purpose is to be able to describe the settlement hierarchy and function in order to compare different settlements within Russia. In order to do this, you'll be able to describe what the settlement hierarchy is. You'll be able to describe examples of the settlement hierarchy in Rostov and Moscow Oblast, and you should be able to explain how the function of the city of Rostov-on-Don has changed. Russia is home to many settlements. A settlement is a place where people live. Settlements can be as small as a single house in a remote area, we call this an isolated dwelling, or as large as a megacity, which is a city with over 10 million people. We can group and rank settlement types by their size. For instance, we can have hamlets, villages, towns, and cities. This is called the settlement hierarchy. We are going to explore the settlement hierarchy of Rostov Oblast. An oblast is a federal district split into smaller regions. Rostov Oblast is found in the Southern Federal District and it's one of 6 oblasts. The smallest size settlement of the settlement hierarchy after an isolated dwelling is a hamlet. A hamlet is a very small group of homes with no services around, such as shops, schools or places of worship. An example of a hamlet in Rostov Oblast would be Golovinka, which is comprised of a handful of farms in the middle of the countryside. There are no other services here. A village is the next settlement size up from a hamlet. A village will be slightly larger than a hamlet and contain more services. For instance, it might have a few shops, a post office, a village hall, and it might have a primary school. Villages can vary in size from a few hundred people to a few thousand. Sovetskaya in Rostov Oblast is an example of a village and is home to 2,279 people. A small town will house more people, and this can be up to 25,000, than a village, and have more services such as a small supermarket, hairdressers, butchers, as well as both primary and secondary schools. Chertkovo, in the north of Rostov Oblast, is an example of this, as it has 3 secondary schools. A large town could house between 25,000 and 100,000 people and have a range of services such as shopping centres, railway stations and hospitals, as well as primary, secondary and further educational providers. Further education refers to sixth form colleges. Sausk, in the south of the Oblast, is an example of a large town within this area. It houses 61,000 people and has Skif shopping centre. Volgodonsk is a city, which is a larger settlement than a large town on the settlement hierarchy. A city usually has 100,000 to 3 million people and a very wide range of services such as university, large hospitals and sports stadiums. It is usually a hub for transport including railway connections and motorway links. The M4 highway passes through the city that links Moscow to Rostov-on-Don. The largest settlement type of the settlement hierarchy is a conurbation. A conurbation is a group of large cities and surrounding areas which can sometimes total a population of over 1 million people. In Russia, conurbations are termed as metropolitan areas. Rostov Oblast is home to the Great Rostov Metropolitan Area. This area includes the cities of Rostov-on-Don, Novocherkassk, Taganrog, Aksay, Batask and Azov. This type of settlement will have the largest amount of services and could include international transport hubs such as international airports. This conurbation houses Rostov-on-Don Airport and Platov International Airport. The size orders of these settlements is called the settlement hierarchy. This shows the settlement hierarchy. As you move up the settlement hierarchy, the size of settlement increases, as does the population and the range of services available. For instance, Hamlet at the bottom of the settlement hierarchy is the smallest settlement, only a few handfuls of houses and no services. In comparison, conurbation at the top of the settlement hierarchy has the most amount of people, the largest area and the most amount of services. However, as the size of the settlement increases, so going up the settlement hierarchy, the amount of that settlement in an area actually decreases. This means that whilst hamlets are the smallest, we will have more hamlets within an area than we will cities and conurbations. Settlements can change in size and services over time. A settlement can also change in function. The function of a settlement is what it does. In other words, what is its purpose or job? A settlement can have more than one function, and these can change over time. There are many different settlement functions. For instance, administrative. Having an administrative settlement function means you are a centre from which a surrounding area of land is controlled. For instance, London has this function as it controls the wider London area and also the UK from the Houses of Parliament. It might have a defensive function. This means that it protects itself or surrounding areas. The picture on the screen shows the Chester Wall. This was built for defensive purposes. A tourism function means that it contains sites that attract visitors, for instance cultural sites, theme parks and shopping. A religious function means that it is a centre for religious buildings or places of worship. For instance, it might have a cathedral. A commercial function means that it has banks and financial institutions within this area. For instance, the photo shows Wall Street within New York, which has a commercial function for the whole of the USA. It might have an entertainment function, which means that the settlement may have sports, theatres, shoppings and restaurants that people go to for entertainment. It might have an industrial function. Industrial means that raw materials may be processed in this area, for instance steel, or processed goods are made, for instance cars. An educational function means that this settlement has places of learning. For instance, it might have universities or maybe even museums. A mining function means that within this settlement, people are extracting a local resource such as coal or iron. If a settlement has a function of being a transport hub, it means that several routes meet in this settlement. For instance, this map shows London and shows the M25 motorway surrounding the city where other motorways and main roads join. Rostov-on-Don, which is in southern Russia, has seen its function change over time. In the 1800s and early 1900s, it established itself in the area as a trade centre. Because it was located on the River Don and had a railway link to nearby large cities, it was really easy to transport goods via boats or by train. The goods were mostly iron and coal which were mined nearby in the area. This continued until World War I and II. Rostov-on-Don suffered from many invasions from Germany and its functions were destroyed. After the wars, Rostov built itself up again. A canal was built between the River Volga and the River Don, passing through the city, which meant that the city continued to be a trading port for boats. Russian, Italian, Greek and Turkish merchants sell wool, wheat and oil to the Russian market here. Many factories in the city build helicopter and farm machinery. These are also transported via boat and train from the area. There are 3 universities in Rostov-on-Don, which are the Southern Federal University, Rostov State University and Don State Technical University. In 2018, Rostov actually hosted several matches of the FIFA World Cup. Exit this video now and complete the Word document found under the output section of this assignment called Student Activity Russian Settlements.